Hey everybody, welcome to episode 131 of the Rock and Roll Research Podcast, where we share the super cool backstories and side gigs of the research and insights pros that you trust. Well, I am super excited today to welcome my former colleague Tara Bosenick to the program. So I first met Tara actually a long time ago, 2010-ish, I want to say. I was
Yep.
working at a company called MSense, a neuroscience company. And Tara was the founder of a really cool user experience company called SirValUse. And what they wanted to do was layer neuroscience on top of the user experience work that they were doing. It was mind-blowing stuff at the time. It was super cool. Some of the most interesting stuff I have encountered in the insight space. So Tara is truly a pioneer when it comes to user experience, user research. So very happy to have her. Now, SirValUse was eventually sold to GfK, right? And I joined GfK in 2011, thus making Tara and I actual colleagues for several years. I had a global role, so I was very happy to be able to travel often to Germany, and Tara's in Hamburg. Spend a little bit of time together in Hamburg, which is really cool. So Tara is doing a whole lot of stuff now. I look at it and I just think, wow, how do you fit that into 24 hours and 7 days in a week? So Tara's currently the managing director of ReSight Global and call it a daughter company called UIntent, right?
Yep.
So Tara's doing those two things. She's also got a really cool podcast called Beyond Your Business. It's in German, right? Is that right?
Yes, mostly. Yeah.
So always practice your German. Mine's getting pretty rusty. It was good for a while. So it's a good one for me to listen to. Anyway, super cool stuff. Now, some other interesting things about Tara we're going to get into. Scouting was very important to her growing up in Germany. It's a big deal in Germany, scouting. And we're going to talk about all that and more on today's podcast. So welcome to the show, Tara.
Thanks a lot for the introduction, Matt.
Yeah, for sure, for sure. It's great to reconnect. And we're going to get into it shortly, but I have to take a quick pause and introduce this product called Magic Mind, which has become a go-to for me, a daily, and they're great because they've been great partners of the podcast as well. So Magic Mind, it's a mental performance shot. Take it every day to make my mind feel clear, make me feel focused, all that good stuff. Get some good sleep. They've got this great program this month focused on mental wealth. So all those things, all the toxins you're putting in your body, replaced with natural ingredients, really sort of target the things that can make you feel lazy or slovenly, all that bad stuff, I should say. So if you want to jump on this, they've got a great promotion that has to do with mental wealth. You can go to magicmind.com/rock and roll Jan. Rock and Roll Jan. They've got a great deal. If you use that code, it's 45% off for a bundle. So if you want to get in on this, like I am doing, makes me feel great, give it a go. So, Tara, what I'm going to do is I'm going to go down the hatch here, and then we're going to get into it. All right.
Enjoy.
Salud. Okay. Perfect. Perfect. All right, so let's start here, Tara. I have to confess, when we were first starting to work together when you were at SirValUse, I really didn't know what user experience was. So I was thinking, oh yeah, user experience. It's like a section of a survey, or maybe it's part of the discussion guide in a focus group. But there's a whole discipline to it which I got really deep into later. So I get it now, but I didn't really get it at the time. So you were really doing something that a lot of people really weren't, and especially digitally. which is kind of your forte. So you want to talk about how you first got into that and take us to present day career-wise?
Yeah, while I was studying sociology, I had the idea of doing an apprenticeship, so to get some practical experience, and I did that in a very small market research company in Hamburg in 1996. So that was my first contact with market research. There, I focused more on statistics and quantitative stuff. And a year later, a good friend of me asked, if good friend of mine asked me if I could do an Excel and Word and PowerPoint training for him and his team in a bank.
Okay,
And I started to do a lot of trainings for them. And if you do a training well, I mean that's at least my perspective. You not talk all the time, but you give the participants a task so that they can figure out things themselves. Because learning by doing is, I think, a good way to learn things.
agreed.
And that was actually the setting of a classical usability test without me knowing it, because I saw a lot of people struggling in fulfilling a task. And then, when I finished my study in 1999, the internet was booming, mobile devices were booming. I met managing directors at parties from companies, from like internet companies that were younger than me. And I thought, hey, I probably can do that also. And so I combined market research and helpless people working on a computer and the internet, and out came a company called SirValUse that was doing usability testing in the first years. And after that, we switched more to the full human-centered design cycle, doing user research and stuff. So yeah, that's how I started. And then, as you already said, I sold the company to GfK, worked there for 7 years, and internationalized the UX global
Yep.
practice within GfK. And then in 2018, I think shortly before or after KKR entered as an investor,
Mhm.
we decided to do it again.
Yeah.
And now we have a holding company called ReSight Global, and this holding company has daughter companies in no, sorry, 7 countries, namely Germany,
Oh,
UK, US, Japan, China, Singapore, and India. And UIntent is the German one. And but we're doing the same stuff, right? Like we
yeah.
did 20 years ago, user research, usability testing, all around the human-centered design life cycle.
Yeah, I love this story because, I mean, at the core of it, you are an entrepreneur.
Yes.
The classic case of, wow, I see a problem here and I don't see anybody fixing it, so I'm going to fix it. And so I just love that. And I mean, just a really measured approach, starting from doing trainings at a bank. It's just a great story. I should mention as well, SirValUse, uh, of another podcast guest, Torsten Mueller, episode 94, worked with you at SirValUse as well. So that's very cool. All right. Okay. So tell me a little bit about what the holding company is doing, and if you could also, I know you have a the really cool podcast. So tell us about what kind of topics you cover there.
Mhm. Well, I mean, the holding company is actually more like an administrative company. We run some joint services through it. So that's not the exciting part. The exciting part are more the local companies that are really doing the job. And what's very interesting for us is that we are probably the only global network of really specialized user experience research and design companies. I mean, there are all the big consultancies have their UX departments and stuff but they're not really specialized as we are, and probably also not as flexible as we are. So
Yeah.
we're working a lot for companies that need global research. So global companies that are very happy to work with us because we deliver high quality through a couple of countries. So that's actually our main business. And well, my podcast, Beyond Your Business, I focus on digitalization. I focus on new working models and, well, what you may call an agile working environment or new work environment, because we apply it in our company ourselves. For
Sure.
example, UIntent is owned by 49% by a cooperative, and everyone that works at UIntent is also an owner, a part owner of the cooperative.
Oh,
So
that's
we
great.
yeah, we are all more or less entrepreneurs, and that's well, kind of an empowered workplace.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's kind of cool to work there.
Yeah. You mentioned I just one thing I want to comment on. You mentioned uh, the big research companies often have a user experience team
Hmm.
or department or division or whatever. But the
Right.
problem there is, usually, hey, you buy a company, let's say you buy a small user experience company, you put them in the organization. You don't want to create a separate sales force, so you just have the existing sales force sell another thing.
Mhm.
Um, but the people to talk to for user experience and market research are almost
Yes.
always completely different audiences.
Hmm.
And there is a discipline to user experience that is different than market research, and it's difficult for market researchers to really wrap their head around it.
Yeah, that's true.
Yeah,
Um, we realized that after some years within GfK.
yeah, yeah, for sure. Exactly. Cool. All right. So scouting was a big part of your life growing up. Would love to hear kind of your experience with that, and then how that maybe helped inform how you work in professional life.
Yeah, okay. I'm not so sure how much I have to explain now because scouting in Germany is very different to scouting in the rest of the world.
Right.
You may know that scouting was invented by an English soldier during the Boer War 1902 in South Africa.
Huh.
And it kind of, in a lot of countries, still has this militaristic touch. So if you raise in the morning, you sing the national anthem while raising the flag and stuff like this. And
Right.
obviously with our um, tradition of beginning world wars,
Yeah.
um, we kind of reflected that that was a bad idea and turned against all kinds of militaristic forms. So I might say that the scouting in Germany tends to be really non-militaristic and non-authoritative. So just to give an example, when German scouts participate in the World Scout meeting called Jamboree, we sometimes also do an morning where we sing something and raise a flag. But if it's scouts from Hamburg, we sing a very local song and we raise the flag of Hamburg,
Yeah.
but not the national anthem. So that's kind of okay. We like to be part of it, but we do it in a different way.
Sure.
And what
Sure. Interesting.
yeah, and what was for me most interesting was I joined late with 17, so I haven't had the pleasure of doing all the fun stuff as a young Boy Scout within the Scouts organizations, and I got pretty quickly into leadership positions. And for, I don't remember, 3, 4, 5 years, I was kind of head of the Scouts in Germany. But what does
Wow.
it mean? Yeah, no, 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 sorry, in Hamburg, not in
In
Germany.
Hamburg. Still.
So, but what does it mean to be head of an organization where you have no employees, where every work or everyone that is there on his or her own will. So it's completely voluntary.
Right.
So how can you lead? So and how do you get people to do stuff? So and that's completely what we in Germany at the moment call um, participatory leadership or leading without the disciplinary power.
Mhm.
Um, so lateral leadership, and I learned that in the 1990s. So
Yeah.
right now, totally popular, and everyone who does new work in the company tries to do it that way. And but I just started that way. So when I started SirValUse, I naturally tried to build the company as a scout group.
Yeah.
And it somehow worked because we had very flat hierarchies and the culture is really great. Whenever we have a kind of SirValUse re-encounter with all the former employees, it feels like family. So that was quite a cool thing. So scouting taught me a lot how to motivate people and how to get them doing stuff without forcing, right? That's
Yeah.
the main takeaway.
And you learned this at such a young age.
Yes.
It's the time when, people are playing video games all day long. You're
Yeah,
taking on this major leadership role. That is really, really a cool opportunity.
that's true.
Yeah, yeah, awesome. Okay, excellent. Now, one other thing, you have decided to make a big change in your life fairly recently.
Yeah.
So I'd love for you to share a little bit about that.
Well, actually, the way that you formulated it is not quite right because my wife made me coming out, which is kind of unusual because, well, yes, I'm a trans woman,
Uh-huh.
but for 52 years, I never realized this, and it took my wife to just tell me one day in late 2022, "Hey, Tim, can it be that you are trans?" And that was my click moment, and everything was clear, and all the stressful things that were part of my life till that moment somehow slowly disappeared. And now I'm happy to be Tara and not Tim anymore. And it's such a freeing um, time at the moment.
Yeah,
That is just awesome. And I'm also very lucky to work in an industry like market research and user experience where people are very empathetic by profession, so to say.
sure,
Um,
sure.
so far, I didn't encounter any negative feedback, which is really awesome,
Yeah.
neither in my company or with clients. And so, yeah, th this is really awesome. So it's kind of normal. People just treat me normal, which is awesome.
Wow, that's great. Yeah, I mean that's a great thing about the time now also. It's not so unusual, right? We see it around us all the time. Lots of trans people
Right.
um, have the freedom to come out and live their best selves. And so it's like, oh, that's interesting, right?
Yes.
It's not like, oh my God, like it was maybe many years ago. So that's timing is fortuitous. So how is your relationship with your wife now? How does that go?
Well, it gets deeper because I don't have this passive aggressive feeling in me, which I where I didn't know where it came from. Um, it's really developing a deeper friendship and a deeper understanding. So that is really cool, and I adore and admire my wife that she's going this way with me because typically relationships break apart when
Right.
one of the partners comes out as trans. So that's awesome. I mean, there are challenges, obviously, but we have decided to tackle them together.
That's wonderful. That is just a great story. That's a
Yeah,
great story.
yeah.
So very happy for you. Super cool. Um, okay, so let's talk research again. Um, so as I mentioned, you've been a pioneer, right?
Mhm.
And you've launched a new company, a few new companies. Um, Curious to know from your perspective, as you look out into the future of insights, what does that look like from your perspective?
Yeah. I think it is we are living in a very interesting time, especially when it comes to looking at the future of research. We are digging at the moment very deep into AI tools that may help us to become more efficient. And
Sure.
that is tricky because as of now, some tools can really deliver great value and can save you a lot of time. But on the other hand, they are still making mistakes. They're still leveling differences and in trying to find the most probable answer to what you're asking, which is somehow the contrary of what research wants to do, right? I mean, within research, you often want to get to know extremes. So, who are the power users? Who are the users that really rarely use the system and have different challenges, therefore. But if you ask an LLM, you'll get an average answer for everything. So that,
Right.
that, that is kind of challenging, but still there is a huge potential. So I see a lot of democratization that comes with these AI tools. On the other hand, what I also see is that we need to focus again on the quality of, especially qualitative research. Because there is a tendency that people are saying, oh, yeah, everyone can run an interview, but that is not true. I mean,
You're here.
yeah, I mean, everybody can run a bad interview, right? But
Yes.
not everybody can run an excellent interview. And if you're relying on the data to do business decisions on that, you are, well, there's a chance that if you rely on bad data, you'll get bad results and bad decisions. So
Yeah.
that is that I'd like to focus on. So apart from digging deep into the AI world. We're also developing a lot of trainings at the moment to, yeah, help internal UX teams to do the right thing.
Yeah. Yeah. Let me ask a question. I'm curious. One of the things when you go to the conferences right now in the US,
Mhm,
one of the things you see the most for brand new companies, startups, is AI based qual,
mhm.
where the interviewer is a bot.
Yes.
Um, do you have a point of view on that at this point?
Yeah, I mean, we have developed several workshops where we try out these bots. And one funny anecdote, if you talk um, to the owners of these companies, they can see in the data whenever there's a UX researcher answering the bot because this UX researcher typically tries to get the bot to the limit. Everybody else answers correctly, but UX researchers try to do fancy stuff with it. So I can see certain use cases for this.
Okay.
Especially if you've done one-to-one human qualitative interviews and want to scale it a little bit to get more numbers. So you have to be
Sure.
really sure what you're asking. If you want to get, for example, an international sample really quick and cheap, but
Sure.
only after you've done some real one-to-one interviews with human beings. Um, Apart from that, these bots can react kind of great, but there are several instances and several interviews that I ran with them where it was just weird. And
Yeah.
the biggest issue is, I think, you are talking as a human being differently to another human being than to a bot. And
Sure.
this is the most it's really weird in a way, and you don't get that much and that kind of deep information you typically get from a qualitative interview. So I'm not sure if this is the future of qualitative research.
Yeah.
It may be an interesting add-on for certain use cases, as I just described, but not for the day-to-day research you need. That's definitely not worth it.
Okay. All right. Good to know. Good to know. Um, cool. All right. So this is I run a podcast. You run a podcast. It's media, right?
Yeah.
Like I said, I look at everything on your plate, and I
Mhm.
see that you're a very very busy person. So, in the time that you have available, what media do you turn to either for insight, inspiration, or enjoyment?
Mhm. Well, my kind of app that I go to when I have some spare time and where I want to relax is the New York Times games app. Because
Yes, me too. Every single one,
yeah,
with
because
exception.
I love Wordle, I love Strands, I love Sudoku. So that's just awesome, and it's really great app. Um, Another great app that I often use is Letterboxd. That is a
Great. My
it's
daughter uses that.
yeah, right. It's a how could you say that? Kind of a pro version for IMDb.
Right.
It's
Yep.
developed by a team in New Zealand, and it focuses more on not really the mainstream movies, but also the smaller movies and
Indie
the
films and yeah.
yeah indie films, and the audience or the users are quite. I mean, they are heavy critics of all the mainstream stuff, so there's kind of fun to scroll through that.
Yeah.
For information, I turn to Spiegel Online. That's one of the
Sure.
biggest newspaper websites in or news websites in Germany. And actually, I do also spend a good time on LinkedIn,
Mhm.
um, connecting with people, reading their stuff, and reacting to it. So yeah, but that's it actually. And I do read. So
Sure.
I mean, real books, right?
Old school.
Yes, because that I think sometimes you just don't need to use the mobile phone. So
Yeah. I
um,
I can't read. I don't like reading long form content like a book on the screen. I just can't do it. So I buy physical books all
yeah,
the time. If I identify a book I want to read, it's going to be a
yeah,
paperback or a hardcover. That's it.
yeah, that's true.
Cool. All right. So we've gotten this far, Tara, and we haven't even talked rock and roll. So shame on us. I mean, this is the Rock and Roll Research Podcast after all. So we got to do it. We have to correct that. So, Tara, you know what question's coming.
Mhm.
Stranded on a desert island, you have three records of your choosing to keep you company for the rest of your days. I know nothing about your musical taste, so I'm fascinated to learn what those records might be.
Yeah, I probably have to disappoint you because I don't know that role. I mean, I probably sat together with Thorsten Müller um, for a longer period of time than with my wife because I mean we always shared an office for like I don't know
Yeah,
15 years, so that was really quite a long time. And I know that Thorsten is well into some heavy stuff, but I'm
yeah. He
actually
he and I are definitely simpatico on
yes.
musical taste.
So I'm more into classical music, and
Okay.
there are three composers that I really like. And actually, I think one of them could be seen as the early rock and roller of classical music because he is really distinct from everyone else and did fancy stuff. And that is Anton Bruckner. Um,
Okay.
he
Interesting.
is, he is Austrian and he wrote nine symphonies, and the eighth one is my favorite. So that's definitely the first um, disc that I'm going to take on that island.
Sure.
Um, then I do love Beethoven, and his Ninth Symphony with Freude schöner Götterfunken is one of the nicest music plays I that was probably ever written. So that's definitely it. And then I recently discovered a Finnish composer called Sibelius, and he wrote some of his music sounds like between Beethoven and Bruckner. So
Okay.
the second symphony a lot. So it's
Cool.
completely different, but that would definitely be my choice.
It works, Tara. It's your island. So your
Yeah,
choices.
thanks.
Yeah, no, that's great. Of course, there have been plenty of classical music mentions so far on the podcast. This is the quantitative data that I have from this podcast. So 131 guests times three choices. So we're up to almost 400 now.
Right.
which is pretty cool. Do you have a guess as to what the most commonly mentioned band or artist is?
Interesting. Well, I don't know. No, I have no idea. But
It's not even particularly close. It's the Beatles.
the Beatles. Okay, yeah, okay,
The
that's a classic,
Beatles.
right?
Yep. So anyway, maybe it's time for me to update that and push that out. It's fun.
Right.
People like to see what that top 10 list looks like. So anyway,
Okay.
Tara, this was great fun. It's great to reconnect as well after all these years. Appreciate you sharing your insights. Really, really good stuff. Glad that things are going super well for you right now. And hey, I just took a new position where global travel is in order. So if I find my
Awesome.
way in Hamburg,
Yes,
we're
please.
going to have to meet up. Yes, absolutely.
No.
Yeah, awesome. All right. Thanks so much, Tara. Talk soon. Rock and roll.